Thank you so much.
Once
again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ford, and it's always a pleasure to be with this audience because we're so linked together in the efforts to advocate for resources and in the general mission statement that you all embrace, we all embrace. Allow me to introduce Emily DeHoveny, who's over in the corner here. I do that because she's one of my coworkers and she's going to be circulating a very important letter on your behalf, our behalf. So thank you, Emily. But let me welcome forward and all of these fans and believers in museums and library services across the country that understand that the value added here is powerful. As we just heard from Robert Gray, thank you for introducing a moment of history to us that is a very powerful moment, and it just teaches us how very tender our moments in history are and how artifacts that speak to those moments strike the senses. And so it's very important to continue in the advocacy for robust funding for the Institute of Museums and Library Services. Why? I think basically because you are an agent, you are agents that reach across this country and penetrate into several audiences out there that become engaged with the richness of heritage and with the beauty. Make certain you bring to the attention of your respective colleagues and representatives that there are letters, there is a letter floating asking for robust funding that I'm doing with my colleague, Representative Louise Slaughter, and with other colleagues like David McKinley, Representative David McKinley, and Representative Leonard Lance. And we're asking for robust funding, as we did last year, for 15. We want it for 2016. And because of several reasons. First and foremost, you're reaching some 18 million students a year. That's a tremendous bit of outreach. Just yesterday, I attended at the New York State Museum the New York in Bloom event that uses its funds, the resources they garner, for the after-school programming at the New York State Museum. It's a very powerful connection with students, and it's a great way to rush spring in upstate New York. And this year, there was no more important year to do that as we have endured through a very difficult winter. But New York in Bloom is fully in bloom, and it blossoms on behalf of the New York State Museum's after-school program. I'm a regular attendee, and I love supporting those efforts. And so the 18 million that are reached, those 18 million students are making a powerful statement, and you're pouring some $20 billion of economic impact into the communities. So why not support robust funding for 2016? I think it's also important to recognize that you are an economic engine. By employing the 400,000 people that you do, you're advancing tourism, cultural education, and library services. Look, those libraries and the museums, the cultural education component is key to quality education. It's part of a successful formula that is essential. It's not just an opportunity, an option. It is essential to quality education. So thank you for being the economic engine that you are. And one of my favorite connections with museums is that you allow for us to more profoundly express a sense of place. And we have talked about this before. I think it's important to understand that the place you call home, or where you now live, or where you work or visit, it's good for us. It's important for us to know that it is a special, significant place. Cultural ed, our museums, enable us to better understand that framework. And also, place esteem, like self-esteem, builds the individual and communities. It allows for torn fabric to be repaired, so to speak. So the place esteem that you drive with your wonderful collections and the messages that you embrace are indeed important factors that add to that place esteem. Finally, I would just say, for the 17,500 museums out there across this country, you are agents, you are beacons that remind us that we need to respect our past, we build upon it, and as a relatively young nation, It encourages, it inspires, it fills us with hope that there is more to be achieved. We, the people, in search of a more perfect union. So let's continue to search for perfection. Let's do it through cultural ed. Let's do it through our museums and our library services. And let's do it in a way that surpasses last year's opportunity, where we had 119 people joining in bipartisan fashion onto our letter of advocacy for resources, robust funding, as you allow me to state. Let's do it with even more numbers this year, but go get them. You know, I was taught by John Lewis from Georgia, Representative John Lewis, who I love, who is an icon of history, whose character is portrayed in the film Selma. He is always telling me in our Brother Paul, Brother John relationship, Brother Paul, make trouble, good trouble. So museum advocates, let's make good trouble on the Hill and strike everyone's senses and say, sign on to the letter and let's have robust funding. Thank you, everyone.